I have had a lot of time, see, to think about what it is that makes somebody a good parent. And it's about constancy, and it's about patience, and it's about listening, and it's about pretending to listen even when you can't listen anymore. And it's about love, like she said.
I think the key elements of forgiveness, especially when it comes to your parents, are the key elements of what we would want if we were ever in their situation. Forgiveness, as I understand it, is truly a gift that you give to yourself. When you look at your past, it's not that you don't feel anything, or it's not that you shouldn't feel anything. It's just that you don't allow anything from the past to weigh you down or like hold you back. It's a skill, really. And it's a skill that requires the ability to be self-reflective, to not only have empathy for others, but to truly try to understand where a person is coming from, to truly try to understand what the human being across from you, why they have made the decisions that they made, and coming to terms and being at peace with that. It's really the conscious qualities, along with the human ones, that truly allow you to understand just kind of like why people are the way they are. And the thing is that every situation is going to be different because people are built differently. You and I are built differently, and that is okay. Take that into consideration when observing your family life, or at least like the dynamics within the family. One of my favorite things to say is that the depth of someone else's pain does not outweigh that of another. Now, what do I know? Because, every time I say that, it might be easier for me to say because if you look at my history, it's kind of like, whoa. The only people that I personally compare myself to, at least when it comes to like that kind of pain tolerance, Maya Angelou. She was raped when she was 7. Mine was when I was 3. And another comparison is, someone that's been like captured, tucked away, for like decades, being like a sex slave and stuff. So, what do I know? It might be easier for me to say that, but here's the thing. I think it brings a lot of comfort because typically when I interact with people and they find out, my history, a lot of the time, people's responses back to me are, well, if you can go through that, then why can't I go through this? And it's just like, whoa. It's not a contest you want to win, I think it brings people comfort because this is the depth of my pain. That's the depth of yours. It does not outweigh another because, again, this is what I was built for. What are you built for? Figure that out. However, I would argue that understanding someone else's pain is the great equalizer of humanity. The best thing I've ever learned about forgiveness is that if you are choosing forgiveness, then choose it. In fact, live it. Breathe it. Remember, forgiveness doesn't mean that they didn't do anything wrong. It just means that you're smart enough to not let that hold you back anymore. And that is not a second-rate intellect. That is a first-rate temperament. This, or like this, is built off of emotional intelligence. As far as being humble, life will teach you humility, especially when you don't listen to what Spirit has to say. The real question is, how do you learn empathy from humility. Because when you're arrogant, you don't expect life to slap you in the face. You don't expect something to happen to you, or that maybe something hasn't happened to you, which leads you to feeling this some sort of superiority, believing that you are superior to those around you. And even the thought of you being superior to someone else will eventually lead to your life crumbling down in one way or another. Maybe not all at once, but slowly life and spirit will knock away the bricks in order for you to learn this lesson. Instead of arguing that something hasn't happened to you or that something hasn't happened yet, just let life come to you. And try and figure out by saying, okay, I know this hasn't happened in my life yet. And that maybe I have not experienced that of another. But we are all still on the same playing field. Or maybe that I wasn't a good person in the past, but I can definitely start now. Or that, maybe I didn't, work hard enough, or, maybe I felt that life didn't give me something that I felt that I deserved, or it didn't give me anything that I felt like I was worthy of. But those kind of lessons are there for a reason. And it doesn't make you any better or worse by trying to recognize that thought. Spin it and get a different perspective on it by thinking, the next time that you think these thoughts, know and understand that most likely the person across from you has thought those very same thoughts at one point or another, thus equalizing the playing field. And that kind of mentality really teaches you that life can happen to anyone, and that sometimes people just end up in bad spots or bad situations. Like, for example, homelessness. Not everyone that's homeless is like a drug addict or an alcoholic. Like, that's such a cliche mainstream mentality. Most of the time, people who, are homeless or even have experienced to some degree some sense of homelessness, maybe they weren't on the street, but maybe someone was bouncing back and forth between their friends' apartments or their family's apartments or homes. That can happen to anyone.
Oh yeah.
Do you even know them?
No.
I feel like I owe you apologies because you went to a liquor store, right, earlier?
Oh, you thought I was gonna get all smacked up drunk, huh?
I thought you were gonna buy alcohol or something.
Yeah. But there's things money can't buy, and my own, I get a happiness out of what I'm doing. No. You're stunned.
I'm stunned. I'm stunned by.
I don't know what to say. Usually I'm pretty talkative.
How you end up to where you're at right now?
Basically, I was living with my parents, and my stepdad had cancer, and they were getting hospice, but it didn't cover. The insurance only pays so much. I quit working because I had to be available. And so he passed away, and then 2 weeks later, my mother passed away from kidney failure. The building they're in is being sold, the condo, and I all of a sudden found myself homeless. That's been 4 months now. And there's a lot of people that are just victim of circumstance, and they didn't go homeless because they're late, you know what I mean?
Lazy or
No,
drug addiction?
It could be a divorce, and one thing leads to another. The man sells his boat, his home, everything, and all of a sudden he finds out he's got no money. And he's, there's a lot of good people that are homeless.
But also, I was one of them. I remember when I was 27, 26, 27, I was in the mortgage industry, and I was making a lot of money. By that time, I was on track to make 6 figures, and it kind of went to my head. And I am humble enough to say that I put myself on some sort of high horse because, yes, that was my mentality, but also it was the mentality of those around me, birds of a feather. But then one thing led to another, and I ended up leaving that job. And then the next 2 years, I experienced such financial hardship, and I had to fight for my life. I had to fight back, and say, no, I want to live. I want to be better. But it's only when you're there that you realize the previous mentality that you had before, and just how arrogant you were. And trust me when I say that those 2 years of trying to get back to financial stability was rough. Unemployment, it challenged me in ways that I knew were possible. The thing is that I guess I just didn't think that it would happen to me. And it did. Let that show as a lesson that it can truly happen to anyone. Some people who are homeless, experience the same thing. Or maybe a family member had cancer and they had to take 2 jobs and pull out a mortgage. Or maybe they lost a home in a divorce. It's life. Life happens like that. And if you think for a second that it's not going to happen to you, you better pull that thought back, because spirit, it's going to recognize your arrogance. And it will humble you. But here's one thing that I do have to say. Those years, yes, they were financially and mentally very difficult. But I honestly would not trade those years for the world, because it taught me how to be a better person. So now, what does all this have to do with forgiving your parents? Well, to be quite honest, all of it has to do with forgiving your parents. What I'm trying to do right now is help you recognize that your parents are people too.
I don't know exactly, okay?
I'm sorry, Mr. Dawson, you don't know what?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Yes, you don't know, right? You don't know what it takes to raise your daughter, do you?
Objection! These are not questions. This is an attack.
Overruled. I'm Lucy's father.
But are you?
See, I'm her father.
Are you really? I'm not talking about the fact that you got some homeless woman pregnant. I'm not talking...
Objection, Your Honor!
Get to the question, Mr. Turner.
Yeah.
The question is, if you love your daughter as much as you say you do, and I know that you do, don't you think she deserves more?
And to be quite honest, I think some people kind of forget that.
You think you got the market cornered on human suffering? Let me tell you something about people like me. People like me feel lost and little and ugly and dispensable. People like me have husbands screwing someone else far more perfect than me. People like me have sons who hate them.
And that, sure, maybe the disorderedness of a person can take over them.
And I've screamed horrible things to him. A 7-year-old, because he doesn't want to get in the car at the end of the day.
And that's kind of how you get things like physical abuse, mental abuse, maybe even sexual abuse, or even just a lack of love, attention, affection.
And then he looks at me with such anger, and I hate him then. I know I'm failing you. I know I'm disappointing you. I know you deserve better, but get in the fucking car!
But I think it's also important to recognize that, yes, that happens, but most of the time, parents don't intentionally set out to hurt their children. What a more accurate representation, or at least narrative of what that would be, is that sometimes people just let the distortedness take over. And that's what you see. The distortedness of a person. That's what you're really angry at.
It's like every morning I wake up and I fail. And I look around and everybody seems to be pulling up, but somehow I can't. No matter how hard I try. Somehow, I'll never be enough.
You're enough. Yeah, you're much more than enough. Lovely Amita, yeah. You're much more than enough. Lovely Amita, yeah.